This week in CIST 2531, we're going to look at lesson 2, techniques for selecting artwork. Some of the items we would look in this chapter include selecting artwork, hiding our shapes, using different selection tools, direct selection tools, and the selection tool. Look at some ways to align shapes, group and ungroup items, work in isolation mode, outline mode, and how to arrange objects. So what we're seeing on the screen here is this is your starting document. This is how your file will start, and then we'll see our ending document and how your ending for the file will be. When we start, we're going to talk about how it's very important to be able to select with the correct selection tool. So we have some options over here. We have our direct selection tool. Look at it here. You also notice that you have other tools that are hidden under here as well, group selection tools, a lasso tool. And then we have our selection tool here. Notice that they do have keyboard shortcuts on this. So the V on the keyboard will take your selection tool, and A will take your direct selection tool with these. So we'll get into these tools here. First, we'll see here on our image, we got our fox. We'll know that he's made up of different shapes, different images. So using the tools, we can click and select those shapes. Now, we do run into an issue here. One of these things here will go over the direct selection tool. This allows you to move, scale, rotate objects. So I can click on a direct selection tool and I can move the object. I can rotate anchor points on the object where you define the corners. We'll move this back to where it started. So there's all kinds of different things I can do with the selection tool. So using the selection tool, I can also, let me resize this again. So using the selection tool, if I can click on the eye of this image, I can drag the image and move it around. If I hold down the shift key and select the next image, it puts it in group selection, so I can select both of those. So I'm adding to the selection by holding the shift key. With this, you see that I can move these now as a group. Goes back to where they started. Now with the direct selection tool, this lets me set anchor points or paths within the object so they can be reshaped. So I said with the path here, I can use this to reshape objects. I can add anchor points in here. Adjust these to adjust the shape. As you can see, once I add images in, points in, so with the selection tool selected, if I'm going to select with a marquee, it's a marquee where I click and drag the selection tool over an area. It's not something that's always the best option. As you see, when I click and try to drag to create a marquee, I am actually moving the background area. So one way I can do this is I can hide or lock objects. So I have the background area selected now, so I can come up to Object and choose to lock the selection. And so now I will not select the background area. Now I can draw a marquee around my objects. For this example, I just want to select the fox, which I can do that way, but to ensure that I don't select, say, the background or character or wildlife, I can also lock that as well. So we'll lock the selection. So now that when I select, I do not select that. I can only select what is unlocked. And I simply just click and drag the mouse pointer over. You see a faint line around my selection. When I release the mouse button, I have now selected that fox area. Now, if I want to hide objects in this, you see in the view, we will look at some different hide options in here. We'll also go look at how to hide individual objects by going to Object and Hide, where we have the option to choose the selection, all artwork, above, or other layers. We can also use the command of Control and the number 3, but I don't want to hide the entire fox. I'm going to leave the eyeballs visible. So when I select my image, I'm going to hold down the Shift key and I'm going to click the eyes, as that's going to deselect those eyes. And I want to do them one at a time so that I remove each one individually. So I'm going to go back up to Object and Hide Selection. And my selection has now been hidden. Now I still have everything else locked on this. So if I wanted to work with anything, I would need to unlock these images. A couple ways I can do that. First, I can come into my preferences. So in here, I'm going to choose the selection anchor displays. And I got the option here to select and unlock objects on canvas. So I'm going to select that. Okay. So what this does is now that when I select an object, you'll see these little icons that will appear, these little locks. That lets me unlock that object. So now it would be able to something I could select. So now I can select this image, select the text, and everything. So now that can get, depending on how much artwork you have locked, that can be quite time consuming to unlock everything individually. You can also come up to Object and choose to unlock all. Okay, so that will unlock everything that you have got it locked on the image. The selected similar objects, this command is going to be kind of similar to the magic wand tool. So we're going to look at, first we got to go to View. We're going to fit all these in Window. And let me deselect all this. So I'm going to select all of these objects that are similar. So first I'm going to use my selection tool and I'm going to click on one of these objects to select it. I'm then going to select and choose Same. Then I have a bunch of different options here, whether it's appearance, blending mode, fill colors, stroke color. So I'm going to choose the stroke color. So I'm selecting everything's got the same border Color is the object I have selected. You see that all of my bamboo has been selected. So to quickly select this again, I want to make sure that I save the selection. Once I'm going to select, save selection, and I will name this bamboo. And click OK. Now when I deselect this, you'll see that I do have this selection saved, so I can quickly come back and make that selection again. Now, by default, your Illustrator is going to show your images with the fill color and with all the paint attributes, stroke, all that showing. But you can choose to view in outline mode. What this does is removes all of the detail and only leaves the outline of the image. You can use Control Y to go into outline mode and back out. With this, this does help if you're using like the selection for dragging selection bar key to select objects. So fills are not an issue in this case, so it's easier to connect those, select those. You can also come in and use view. And then we're going to go to outline. And that will allow you to view this in outline. Also view, if you go to the GPU preview, we'll put it back in with the colors as well. You can also align objects. So I'm going to go back in to select the bamboo. You have different options down here as far as the navigations here as well. And over the properties, you do have the alignment options located here. I'm just going to choose, say, the horizontal center. You can see how we can align images. Using the properties panel, you can choose different alignment options. You can also use the align to a key object. So you can choose what object you want your other objects to align to. All right, so with, like, for example, all of these selected, and so I want to align everything to this. So I want to select that image, and I will click the horizontal align. So as I showed you previously, and now I've aligned everything to that one image. You do have more options you can choose for the align. As you can see, the different options in here. You can distribute the objects. For example, the vertical, just horizontal, vertical. You can see that you can distribute the objects that you have selected. All right, so I'm going to deselect all of this, and now we're going to look at adding in anchor points. So with the direct selection tool selected, I'm going to come to this image, and I'm going to click in the lower right corner point on this anchor point. We'll press the shift key. You see, as I adjust, I have a handle that I can adjust the size. And I can move this anchor point to new locations. Now with that selected, I can still come in and adjust the alignment here as well. And I'm aligning that anchor point. All right, so when you work with groups, even if you don't like working in isolation mode, so this is something that even if you don't want to work with this, you need to know how to see this, recognize it. Most time the escape key is going to let you exit isolation mode. So we're going to go back and do the deselect that and select the bamboo again. We'll see how we quick actions in our properties. So we have a group. We see that this right now can't be made because there are different groups. So in this case, I'm just going to grab these here. And let me save this selection. There's bamboo 1. You see that I have these options selected. So when we look in isolation mode, for example, let me select these leaves here. It's a great tool, selection tool. So if I double click one, I go into isolation mode. So now I'm only working on this image. You see everything else I cannot select. So I have isolated down to just this one image. It's the only thing I can work with. Once again, to get out of this, I can hit the escape button on my keyboard and I can exit out of the isolation mode. For example, some of the things I can do in here is I can change the fill or the stroke. So if I want to change the color, see that I can. Or if I wanted to add a stroke to this image, that can be done also through here. So once you're finished with the chapter, once again, your finished artwork should resemble this. It should be a completed fox with everything moved from this box over into your completed artboard.